People have had arguments in the masjid and stopped talking to each other because of fights in the masjid.
Hello, Uzma. How are you?
I'm good. Alhamdulillah. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Are you kidding? Like I told you, I'm super excited about this
I
talk.
love it. I love the energy. That's awesome.
Oh yes, we need that. We need that, right?
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
and you have the same energy. I just love that. I just met you, through Muslims Jafri, and I was like, I need to talk with these women one on one, and
Awesome.
share the love in video, share the wisdom because we need that, right?
Yes, yes, we all do.
So, tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Okay, I would love to. So, my name is Uzma Jafri. I am the co host at Momming While Muslim podcast, which is an American based podcast focusing on Muslim American moms and their kids, those of us who were born and raised in this nation, and our children are born and raised in this nation. It's open to everybody, of course, but the specific issues that we have, that's what we look at. And the reason being is I have 4 children, and they are 12, 11, 9, and 6. And so my kids were born after 9/11 happened, which changed the trajectory, arguably, for the entire world. And it was, a historical event. I was raised in America before 9/11. I remember what America was like before them, and my kids have no idea. They've never walked up to the gate to pick up their grandparents with flowers. They've never helped their grandparents onto a plane and then walked off the plane after saying hello to the pilot and everything. And, just life was very different. Like, Islamophobia wasn't a term. Islamist wasn't a term. What you wore or didn't wear wasn't a huge issue in America. It became that. I want to make sure that as a mom, I'm doing my job to prepare my children for the world, but I also feel that my duty is to prepare the world for my children. So that's why I do what I do.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, so tell us more about the topic that you talk about on, Mummy and Well Muslim on the podcast.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we bring from our home culture, because those of us who had to grow up with one foot in each continent, our parents were immigrants to this country. So they brought a lot of that, a lot of times cultural baggage, and a lot of times misapplied teachings of Islam, ill-informed teachings of Islam. So that was problematic for us. And, here we got to learn a very distilled and very authentic form of Islam. There are definitely people who didn't get that, and they continue to learn altered versions or their own interpretations of Islam. So what tends to happen with that is a lot of things that we should be focusing on as Muslims in America or anywhere in the world, arguably, we're not focusing on. And the things that shouldn't matter as much, like we care so much about it. So one of the things, for instance, in the South Asian community primarily, and this is, I think, all over the world, because as we know, the majority of Muslims come out of the Indian subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, right? I mean, after Indonesia, it's those 3 nations. So they're non-Arabic speaking, right? And it's so important for them. 2 things. One, the hifz of the Quran, memorization of the Quran, which is amazing. That's great. They produce thousands of hufaz like every decade. Perfect. Alhamdulillah. And then the zabiha, like the zabiha issue. So in America, unlike Muslim countries, you have to look at the label, you have to ask for everything. If you're zabiha, you can't eat soup at a restaurant because it's probably made with some chicken, or maybe has like a little bit of bacon fat thrown into it, or a bit of ham to add flavor, is what they say. And so if you don't know to ask those questions, you may inadvertently take that in. But like subcontinental Muslims who care so much about it, they will take it to another level. They will come into a Muslim's house and read their labels. They will come into a Muslim's house and ask, is this zabiha or not zabiha? And we know that this is not from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And people have had arguments in the masjid and stopped talking to each other because of fights in the masjid over the zabiha. People have left the masjid over the zabiha. One of the other things that we noticed coming out of both Arabic speaking and non-Arabic speaking populations, subcontinental, and then like the Shem area, and I would say arguably even the Gulf Muslims, there must be a curtain in the masjid, because America is already so much fitna. There's so much mixing with the men and women. We cannot mix in the masjid, God, for even though the men are all the way in the front and the women are all the way in the back, we must have a partition so that the women cannot see the imam. The children cannot see the imam. A lot of times we can't hear the imam. And because we had such a huge influx of South Asian Muslims come into the United States after 1968, that was the first big immigration act of the century that had allowed people to come in, mass migrations to come in. They came from South Asian descent. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but in a lot of South Asian countries, the majority of them, women don't go to the masjid. Not for Jummah, not for the Salatul Eid, nothing. There's no space for the women. In Pakistan, when I visited as a 20-something-year-old, I got all ready in Jummah, and I'm like following my uncle out the house. He's like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "To Jummah." And he's like, "There's no place for you to pray. That's only in the Wahhabi masajid, and there are very few of those. We don't go to those." And I'm like, wait, it's not for just Muslim men, though. If I want to go, I should be allowed to go. And in America, I had known that, but the masajid that were initially built, and some of them obviously are still running in this country, do not have a place for the women and children, or if they do, you have to walk down steps, so not handicap accessible, not old woman accessible, definitely not safe for kids, through the basement, in the alley, by the garbage. You know, your bathroom and wudu areas are very poor. I don't know if you have that situation in Europe, but definitely women are excluded from the masajid. And if you do that, well, where do kids get their education? In the laps of their mothers. But the mothers can't even teach the kids how to be in a masjid. And then when the kid goes for the first time as a little kid to the masjid with his dad, he's running around and being crazy. He doesn't know how to act in a masjid. Yeah, because you didn't take me and you didn't take him, you know? So those were the kinds of things that we talk about. Like, look at what you guys set up. That's problematic. We can't continue that. We need to make it accessible to everybody. We need to drop a lot of our focus on, you know, let's focus on the 3 questions we're going to be asked in the grave. You know, let's not focus on, you know, the little things like there's mono and diglycerides in your bread, so it's haram for you. There's enzymes in your cheese, so it's haram for you. We make the haram halal a lot in this country, and a lot of times we make the halal haram. And those are the kinds of things that we talk a lot about on the podcast.
I love that. So please, we're gonna share all the links, and tune in to Mommy and Well Muslim. And for me, you know, even if I'm not a mom yet, you know, it's really something that I need to educate myself on, because I'm also starting my journey to just discover my faith and learn it, you know, by myself, and just going, you know, doing the journey and deepening my faith. So it's so important. And of course, like, you see all of these, you know, unnecessary or like controversial, like, you know, teachings that are against the religion, and that's why it's confusing for the Muslims and it's confusing for the non-Muslims. So it's like, okay, what is going on here, right? So thank you for doing the job of just, you know, sharing and educating. We need that. So I just wanted to thank you guys to do this, and, you know, thank you personally to just share your experience with your children.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks.
You're welcome. So let's go back to Uzma personally, because this is all about you, madam. Okay. It's not you, the mom. It's about you, Uzma, the person, the woman, the amazing woman. You're a physician. I always start this interview by asking the, you know, challenges / struggles. Can you share with us your top 3, you know, struggles that you had in your life being a Muslim woman?
Oof. Like womanhood, right? We're not talking about childhood. Okay. Definitely.
If there were anything in your childhood that was really, you know, impacted you strongly, you can share that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily had any, you know, everybody has those struggles in childhood with identity, but I would say that maybe that's the only thing that carried through to my adulthood. Like, where am I from? You know, that was something that carried me until I was 35. And then gender discrimination, which occurs in not only Islamic spaces. The majority of the gender discrimination I experienced in my life came in non-Muslim spaces, which is where I spent the majority of my life. And then what's the next one? I guess I would just say Islamophobia. Confronting that and figuring out how to fix it.
So how did you fix it? How did you overcome these? We need that.
Yeah. The identity crisis, actually, alhamdulillah, Allah sent me somebody to fix it for me, because she herself, I give her so much credit, alhamdulillah, for training me, grooming me, making me, giving me the tools to use, I think, the strengths that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me, which is speaking. So the first volunteer job that I got as a mom, because I was really active before, but then life happens and you can't think outside of the box of your little world. And that happens to all of us, regardless of whether you have kids or not. People are in school, people are working, and you forget that our responsibility is not just to this, what is this job in front of us, but also to the community without us, as Muslims at least. So the first volunteer job that I got when I came up for air after 3 children was the Islamic Speakers Bureau of Arizona. And so what they do is they train Muslim speakers and send them out to schools, churches, anybody who invites a Muslim to come and speak. It's like, here's the horse's mouth. We're all saying the exact same thing because we have a script, we have to take tests, we have continuing education to make sure we're all saying the same thing. And it's really great. We also speak with other faiths panel. So you have a Christian, a Jew, and a Muslim on the same panel. So it's kind of like, a bad bar joke, but it's really great and educational for the audience. Yeah. So I was training for this. And as my introduction, we had to say, what's your name? Where are you from? And anytime I got this question growing up, I said, my name is Uzma Jafri and I'm from Pakistan. That's my family's country of origin. I looked down on people who said, my family is from so-and-so, my family is from so-and-so. And I would say, oh, you're not proud of your heritage. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm Pakistani. And she was like, you're from Pakistan? So when did you come to the United States? And people had always asked me that. And I would always say, oh, no, I was born here. And some of them would be confused and they would say, wait, but then you're American. And I would always say, no, I am not. Amriki, that is not me. I am not an American, because that was so negative in my household.
Yeah.
To be an American meant all kinds of things. It meant boyfriends, it meant pork, it meant clubbing and all these bad things, drugs, of course. So couldn't be an American. I was like, no, I'm not an American. And she was like, no, but you are, because she was British. All right. So her story was she was born in Kuwait, born and raised in Kuwait, and then went to boarding school in England. And when she was 19, graduated, got married, and came to America. So like really a third culture kid. Right. And she had this British accent, just a very vivacious, energetic woman. And she's like, no, you're American. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And she's like, sweetheart. And she held me by the shoulders and she's like, you were born here. You are American. Your children are Americans. And I was like, and she'd been in America for like 30 years. So right. I was like, well, she's a lot smarter than me. And it was like all these explosions happened in my head. And I started connecting the dots. And I was like, oh, crap, I am American. And I'm a really good person. Like, being an American doesn't mean that it's bad, And my extended family had all been overseas. And when they came over, anytime I made like a cultural faux pas in my speaking or my actions, they'd be like, oh, well, it's okay. You don't know any better. You're American. So I really felt like, oh, I'm lesser than everybody else. So for the first time, I came into my identity and I became a proud Muslim American. I was 35 years old when I had this discovery. So that was huge for me. And I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for sending me that person, because she helped me not confuse my kids. Yeah. Although I was telling them that they were American, because they're native born. They have never been to Pakistan. They've never been to India. So they don't know anything. The gender discrimination that you face, I think, happens to all women, regardless of what you do, regardless of the field you pursue, regardless of the education or socioeconomic status that you have. And so that was in school, where I was sexually harassed in graduate school. I made complaints about it and nothing was done, because when you have physicians in power who have been in power for a very long time, you can't take them down as a medical student. Nobody cares. Yeah. And there's really very little recourse. This is way prior to Me Too, but arguably even after Me Too. Yeah. What have we accomplished? We haven't done very much. There hasn't been any kind of legislation, and violence against women continues. Yeah. Because we have not set a precedent for what happens if we followed Islamic law. We would know what happens to somebody who does that. A lot of the times it is a lot more subtle, like, oh, well, you probably can't do this job because you have kids, or you probably can't do this job because you have to focus on what's going on at home. And that's not something that they would ever say to a man, but that's definitely what they're going to say to you as a woman. And, I don't have any good answers except to say when they don't invite you into the boardroom, you build your own boardroom. When they don't give you a microphone, you pick it up and you start your own. And that's one of the reasons why we did the podcast, is because we weren't seeing ourselves represented. And again, I think it's a gender discrimination thing within our own community. We're just now realizing how important it is for Muslim women's voices. And look at the entire world. It's Muslim women, in the Arab Spring and even in the United States. It's the women who are making waves. Yeah, you have your celebrity imams in the United States, but outside of them, there's very few mainstream working men, Muslim men, who are bringing Islam to the forefront and activism to the forefront. It's all women.
Yeah.
And then what was the last thing that I said?
Islamophobia.
I think I got everything. Oh, Islamophobia. Thank you. Yeah, the big one. That's something that, most of us struggled with throughout our lives to some extent, but very minimally. As an adult, though, it's huge. And then once you become visibly Muslim as a woman, once you don the hijab, then you are the target. So hijabophobia is really real within the Muslim community and without the Muslim community. So without, it can actually be physically dangerous, especially in the United States or certain parts of the United States, to be Muslim, where people are attacking Muslim women. But I know that this happens significantly in Europe as well.
Yeah.
But running women off the road, at least putting something at them. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to join something like the Islamic Speakers Bureau first, because if people aren't educated, and if we don't start educating the children first, and the people of faith first, then we're not going to have allies. So it's really important to plant those seeds of allyship and brotherhood, sisterhood early on, as soon as you can. And I've even had parents who have said, oh, you have a Muslim coming into the classroom. We have speech in the United States, so you can't teach religion, but you can teach about religion. And so a lot of parents of other faith communities have said to the teachers, no, we want to come and attend, and we want to see what this Muslim woman is saying. And, they came very defensively. They came expecting, a woman who was the wife and really oppressed, telling the girls that this is the way to live. No, would come at the end of the presentation and say, thank you so much. I learned so much today. I'm so glad you taught my daughter this. And that, I think, is the best, most peaceful way that we can combat Islamophobia, is just to educate more people, and then to vote out those officials that are Islamophobes.
Yeah, exactly.
Find them and root them out wherever they are.
You have to work both ways, from the top and then, from the foundations, 100%.
Yes. It's not a one-to-one path.
It is. Oh, thank you for sharing all of that. That's huge. There's so many things in there.
I know. I'm sorry. I feel like I talked so much.
No, but it's great. Again, it's about you. It's about your experience. I love that you talked about the identity crisis. It's a different story for me, because from the get-go, I have such a strong personality, and I'm also taking out all of these, how do you like names? You're like French, or like you're Arabic. No, I'm just me, I'm just me, and I go from there. So it wasn't really an issue for me, but it also, in a way, I'm like, I can travel all over the world, but I haven't I haven't found a place that I can call home, let's say, like to settle. But I'm very free, and I'm just doing myself. So it's another type of mindset, right? And but I love that you shared your own, identity crisis, and I see it here with my aunt, especially. She's so against being friends. Exactly what happened in your household. She's like, no, we're not French, but that she's not going in Algeria anymore, right? It's like, it's like, why you're not going over there neither? And she and her husband, they installed this confusion in the children. And one of my cousins just left home. She was, because everything was, no, it's bad, it's bad. You can have friends, you can talk with this person. It's a no, no, you can go out, we can do this.
Right.
So it was so much negativity, so much pressure, and not enough talking and educating. And they're like very educated people, you know,
Right.
on a personal level and on a religious level, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, she had a different story, you know. She was brainwashed by the extremism in Algeria before she came here. So it's yes,
Oh, okay.
she got that. So, but unfortunately, I mean, and she's doing well, you know, she's a nurse and all of that, but it's unfortunate. I see it, and I see the destruction that it has on this new generation. Is like confused. Is like, I just want to be, you know, myself, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
French, and like, you know, but I'm also Algerian. So it's weird. Thank you for sharing this. And gender discrimination, oh my gosh, that like
Talk
100%.
for hours about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is global. It's a global
Yes.
state because all the societies are male dominated. So
100%.
it's double work for us to do this, you know. Okay, I have my gender and I'm also Muslim, you know, I'm also an immigrant. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, so many battles to fight,
And
right?
then in America, if you're a Muslim Black female, I mean, those are our queens. They're our warrior women who are on a daily basis, they are struggling because I can take my hijab off and be a little bit different. But if they took their hijab off, I mean, just the color of their skin, they can't change that. You
Yeah,
know, they can't
yeah.
take it off. And everybody in the world knows what happens to Black people in America.
Mm.
So that is an ongoing problem that they have to deal with, the gender and racial discrimination here. So, yeah.
Stronger together, we can just, you know, and we fighters, we know women are fighters, and if you want
Yes,
to
we
change
are.
societies, you start with the women 100%. So
100%.
this is why we're doing this, ladies. So we hope we send you love and energy, and, you know, on your struggles. And I hope
Yes.
Uzma's story and solution will help you, will give you a new perspective, and also strength to just continue and strive, you know, as a person and as a woman. You said you created your new identity, let's say, or like you discovered yourself, or like you would become free. I don't know, like how to call it, at 35 years old. If you had a way to go back at that time, you know, what would be one advice you would give to yourself?
Give myself at 35 or before 35, so I wouldn't have to wait until 35.
Oh, whatever, before 35. Let's say before your
Yeah, yeah.
mentor.
I think, like I was just saying yesterday, I wish that the older me was available to the younger me to come back, and it was something else that I wanted to teach the younger me, because there always is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I would say to her, like, it's okay. Like, yes, you're American. You don't fit in when you go back to Pakistan. You stick out like a sore thumb. Even if you wear the clothes, you speak the language, you eat the food, they immediately know. They could smell America on you, you know? So you don't fit in over there. And sometimes, you know, there's certain letters that we say in our language, it just sounds American.
Yeah.
And so even our friends and family can hear it in our accents, and they're like, you're not really a Pakistani. But then you come to America and like white people are like, where are you from? Because they don't think you belong either. You know, like it's not possible in their minds. There were so many people who I visibly could see that their brains were exploding when I said I was born in America. I was like, yep, we're here and we're breeding, you know. We've been here for a very long time. You brought us over on the slave ship, so we're here. In any case, I would tell her, like, it's okay. You are American and it's fine. And no matter what your parents say against America, you know, they chose to come here. So there must be good here. And, you know, arguably that is something that my parents taught me, but like the culture was just wrong. Nobody here has any culture. And I think that's categorically untrue. There is very much, you know, you can tell as a European, you know, what an American attitude is, and what American thought process is, and what, you know, an American type of phrase is. Like, we are our own brand of independent here. And, you know, that's true for any nationality, I think. And I would just tell that younger me that it's okay to claim your identity and run with it. And you don't have to explain your entire family tree and genealogy and how family got here. Nobody deserves that. They've got to earn it. So
that, yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. 100%. Just be you, and like you don't have to explain yourself to anybody, you know, and you don't need any validation. You just need your own validation.
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
that. Last question, Uzma.
Mhm.
Is there any question that you wished me I asked you I didn't?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, I don't know. I guess where do we see the future of Muslim women in America?
Mm,
Yeah, I wish I could think globally, but globally, I feel like the future is still pretty bleak.
mm,
Especially with all of the oppression that's going on in major countries that continue to wage war against Muslims in particular, but against all oppressed people, particularly women
mm,
who are vulnerable to war crimes and crimes of oppression. In America, I feel like in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have more Muslim. I assume I can answer that question.
yes,
So,
please. Yeah.
okay, perfect. So in the next 5 to 10 years, I really do see more Muslim American women in places of power in leadership. More and more of them every year are not just winning like seats in city councils, school boards, they're becoming mayors, they're becoming legislators in their state. So we have like local government, then we have state government, then we have national government, which is what makes the news, right? So, I mean, it's a stepwise process because if you think about it, even Kamala Harris started as the governor of California, but before that, she was like the lead attorney in her
Mm,
city, the attorney
yeah.
general. And so, you have to put in your time. And
Right.
with each step, these Muslim women are getting more and more strength. And, we hope to see them in more of them, more than two or three of them in the
Mm,
national, our Congress, which would be the equivalent of a parliament, I believe, in Europe. And so I see that happening, and it's going to help with a lot of the gender disparities that we have in terms of income disparity, because that still exists. Women in America earn 10% less than men, depending on the field that they're in, and that includes medicine, by the way.
yeah.
So we don't have equity in pay. We definitely don't have equity in the way that laws are applied to us. I see Muslim women fighting against every single Islamophobic act and law that has been enacted since 9/11. And I see them being the primary driving force behind shutting down things like Guantanamo.
I love that. Awesome. What a way to finish up Uzma, this first interview. This is
I'm
amazing.
excited. Thank
Oh my
you.
gosh. Yeah. This is so powerful. And as we have agreed before we started talking, you will come back because we have so much
Inshallah.
more to tell us.
Yes.
You as a Muslim businesswoman, as a physician, building your business and being a mom, and now having this podcast, it's amazing what you're doing, and I want to learn more. And I think everybody wants to learn more, so you got to come back. So thank you
Inshallah.
so much. Have a lovely day. And where can people find you? We're gonna share all the links, but you can do your minute of PR now.
Oh, perfect. So find us on Instagram at mommying, Mommying, Mommying While Muslim podcast, all squished together, no dots, hyphens to confuse you. We also have a Facebook page, Mommying While Muslim, and then the private group associated with that. Join that because that's where we have a lot of our Q&A and discussions, pre-post podcast, and then some things that are completely unrelated, because what we encourage the Muslim mom community and Muslim mompreneurs, post your businesses, let us support your businesses, because the more we grow them, if we're not willing to pay 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 extra dollars for a product made by a Muslim woman, well, that business is going to sink. So we need to that's how we show investment in our Muslim mompreneurs. And then of course, showing support for everybody. So that group is pretty active. I'm not sure when this airs.
I think next week. So
Okay.
last week of February, maybe. Yeah, I think last week of February.
Oh, okay. So it might be too late for that, but this series on our podcast, which you can find on every podcast app, from Apple Podcast to Google, Spotify, Stitcher, we're on everything. So I don't know what your equivalent of Alexa is in Europe, but if you ask your little smart hub for Mommying While Muslim, we should come up.
Yeah, we're gonna share all the
Yeah.
links to the podcast
Yeah,
and
we'll
social
share all of
media.
that.
They will find you. And please
Yeah.
go and connect with these amazing ladies. We have so much to learn. And as Mona Alidrisi from Lara Boutique, I interviewed her, and she was also saying that she found so many difficulties to communicate or like to market, the cosmetics, two Muslims. And I was like, what, really? And she says, yes, it is what it is. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, we really have this issue, and it's good for our iman, to support. So we got to do this. It's twofold. So it's too many benefits. So we got to do this 100%.
Yeah. I mean, that's true of our podcast too. Our primary audience is non-Muslim women.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Which is great. They're very supportive. But I mean, we made this podcast for Muslim women. We're very happy to and grateful to whoever does listen.
Yes.
But if your target audience isn't benefiting from it, should you continue? Well, now we think, yeah, we should, because if nothing else, we are performing dawah in this work.
Yes.
But, we hope to have the support of our sisters. And, we're on 6 continents. 6 continents listen to us. So we're affecting people as far as Singapore.
It's a process. Listen, it's a process. We're gonna get there. We just need to be together and just connect and put ourselves in many platforms and cross, I think, network and support. It will get there.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thanks
so much for having me.
You're welcome. Take care of yourself. Thank you.
You too. All right. Bye.